Hey there, and welcome back to the Marzen 2019. This is a round one Bout 7 clash between Southern Pines Brewing of Southern Pines, North Carolina, and Bohemian Brewing of Midvale, Utah. The Master Marzen is my idea to pit 32 of America's best craft breweries against each other to see who can come out on top as the best Oktoberfest craft beer in the United States of America. In each bout, the beers compete head-to-head across 5 criteria, with the winner progressing and unfortunately the loser being knocked out of the tournament. The 5 criteria are packaging design, aroma, flavor, body, and the people's choice. So let's go ahead and start with number 1, and this is an interesting position for me because this is my first experience with either of these breweries. So starting with Southern Pines, I'm not familiar with their branding, obviously. I haven't really had any of their beer before, but they have this kind of gold motif going on and a tree on the front. As you can see on this side, there is a like a coat of arms with a few other bits and pieces in it. It's a bit of a departure from what you would typically see from an Oktoberfest brewery. Usually there's a couple different motifs most breweries will fall into, but it's interesting nonetheless. Bohemian, on the other hand, has very much upheld the typical Oktoberfest blue and white check. I like that they've got their little coat of arms up here, and if you flip to the back, this is actually their logo. Okay, criteria 1, the packaging design is going to go to Bohemian. They sort of maintained the traditional Oktoberfest motif, and they've put their own spin on it with their really clean looking branding as well. So moving forward, it is 1 point to Bohemian and 0 to Southern Pines. So for criteria 2 through 4, I actually have to drink the beer. Let me go ahead and put those in glasses. Okay, so the beers are in glasses. Let's go ahead and move on to criteria number 2, which is aroma. I'm going to start with Southern Pines on my left-hand side. The aroma on the Southern Pines is somewhat subtle, but what I'm getting out of it I really like. It has those rich, toasted, malty notes that you expect from a Marzen. It's just that it's a little subdued as far as the strength of the aroma. Let's go ahead and check out the Bohemian. So I'm getting a little bit more of a malty smell out of the Bohemian. It's just not the typical toastedness, but definitely very, very malty on the nose, and it smells like it's going to taste pretty good. This one's a tough decision to make because Southern Pines kind of has the more typical characteristics of what you expect from Oktoberfest Marzen. It also looks like it's slightly darker in color, so that makes a bit of sense. But Bohemian has a lot more power to the smell. It just doesn't hit on all the typical toasted malty notes that I really enjoy about Marzen. I'm going to go ahead and award this round to Southern Pines because although it's a little bit more subtle, it does have that really traditional toasted malty quality to it, which is what I really enjoy about Marzen's overall. Criteria number 3, probably the most important, how do they taste? Let's go ahead and check out these Southern Pines. That's a really interesting beer, actually. It kind of follows the aroma in some sense. The flavor, when you first put it in your mouth, is a little bit subdued, but on the back end, it has this rush of really, really strong and flavorful toasted malts. And it's retaining pretty well. I'm, I guess, 20-30 seconds after my mouthful, and it kind of tastes about as strong as it did at the initial point of consumption. So those malty flavors, as I said, not super strong on the front end, but really, really powerful and very, very well done actually on the back end. All right, let's see what Bohemian has to offer. So Bohemian kind of backs up the aroma as well. The flavor is a bit more well-rounded throughout. What you get on the front end is very similar to what you get on the back. As I said, it is very malty. It doesn't have that toasted malt to it, but it has more of a kind of sweet, bready malt flavor to it, which in and of itself not a bad thing. But again, just what I enjoy in a Marzen and what I'm looking for in a Marzen, I think Southern Pines actually goes ahead and takes this point. So they are now leading 2-1 as we move into the body. Okay, so head retention. Both of these beers poured a really solid, foamy head, and they retained for roughly the same amount of time. Southern Pines may have lost it a little sooner in the video, but it was also the first to pour, and I'd say they're on about even keel there. Neither of these beers are really lacing at all. At that point, it comes down to mouthfeel. So in judging mouthfeel for a Marzen, you generally don't get anything that's really, really thick. It really comes down to, in terms of crispness and general drinkability, I guess is the way to describe it. So let's go ahead and just have another mouthful or two of each of these and compare them. Okay, so these beers differ tremendously in terms of their mouthfeel, their thickness, and that sort of stuff. The Southern Pines is much thicker than the Bohemian. For some, that's a really good thing. You get kind of a more substantial, more flavorful, fuller experience, but it can also potentially bloat you and fill you up sooner. On the flip side, the Bohemian, it's thinner and crisper, and it feels like it would be really easy and quite enjoyable to drink several of these in a row. I guess it really comes down to preference-wise, what you're looking for in a beer. In my preference, Marzen is great because you change the season and you get those thicker, fuller, more complete kind of beers. And so I'm going to go ahead and award criteria number 4, mouthfeel, to Southern Pines. But again, it comes down to preference. Okay, criteria number 5 is the people's choice. If this is your first time watching a Master Marzen video, you at home actually get to help influence the decisions here. I run a poll on my Instagram at Sergeant Suds, I'll have a link below, where you can actually vote on each of the bouts in each of the rounds for the duration of the tournament. The poll on Instagram story runs for 24 hours, and it actually finished up a couple hours ago. This one was pretty close. Bohemian was the fans' choice, 58% to 42%, as you can see on the screen. And the breakdown for that, for those playing at home, is 65 votes for Bohemian and 47 for Southern Pines. So the people's choice tightens things up a little. Bohemian gets their second point. Unfortunately, for them, Southern Pines is still going to progress 3-2. And in the second round, they will go on to face the winner of the Live Oak versus China All Texas Showdown. It was a hard decision. Both these beers are very solid beers in their own right, and I'm probably a broken record at this point, but especially with craft beer, distribution networks are very different. East Coast, North Carolina, Southern Pines here, Bohemian, which is from the Utah area. You can't get either of these in Texas normally, and I imagine if you live in the distribution for one, you probably don't get the other. So if you do happen to be in the distribution area for either of these beers, go ahead and buy them. They're both great beers. I was very happy drinking them. It's just the unfortunate fact of the way this tournament works is one has to go home and one continues each round. Alright y'all, well that brings this bout to a close, but as I said, this is a 32 beer competition, so there's plenty left to come. If you are interested, I do ask you go ahead and like or subscribe, just so you can stay in touch for the duration of the tournament. And if you have experience with Southern Pines or with Bohemian, go ahead and let me know below which of their brews is your favorite. Until next time, Prost!